Alright, YouTube, we are back, of course, talking that FF7. You know the motherfucking drill, dudes. What else are we talking about? Hamaguchi interviews, of course, because what the hell else is there to talk about? There's been a few interviews the last couple days with Games Radar and Forbes on the 10th and 11th, respectively. There's just like a few talking points from these interviews that I think are a little bit interesting and that I want to talk about, so let's hop into it. Getting back to the sort of games Hamaguchi is making, and indeed playing, Part 3 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project beckons. Hamaguchi tells me that the ambition remains to build upon what's come before rather than simply spruce up some textures. The team has taken on feedback from the past two games. Devs are looking at the situation around yellow paint, for example, but still believe there's definitely a need for that kind of thing. There's actually a longer version of Hamaguchi talking about the yellow paint from a previous interview with Games Radar from like 2 weeks ago or so. Because I remember seeing Shinark cover it, and it was kind of making the rounds, people kind of giving their opinions on it, right? Myself included. We haven't really discussed it in a video in quite some time and kind of what our thoughts are on that. I will say, overall, I really don't give a shit. It really doesn't matter to me that there's some sort of indication that you can climb something, whether that's yellow paint or for some games like Witcher 3 and Dying Light 1 at least that I played recently. There's white paint that lets you know that you can jump to something or climb something, whatever. But what I will say is that I think it's a little bit excessive at times in Rebirth. I'm not saying that you don't need to have it in certain situations or certain areas or whatever, but I don't think you need it as often as they have it in Rebirth. We'll just use this as an example. A random picture pulled from Google Images. Can you tell me that in this particular situation, that yellow paint was absolutely needed? It was necessary. With this very obvious climbable section of this wall, be that confusing for people if there wasn't yellow paint. If you just got rid of it. If it was just the color of the stone behind it, right? On top of that, you have the lighter colored stone behind it that's a grayish, greenish color or whatever that only follows the parts that you climb. It gives you a very clear indication that you can climb it. There's multiple things here. The handles themselves, the yellow paint, and the lighter colored stone. It's just kind of excessive. I'm not saying that it couldn't be useful in certain situations, but I can't think of any immediate moment in Rebirth where, it would have been necessary. It's kind of hard to really say that because everything that you can climb is covered in yellow paint, right? So I can't say that I ever struggled to find anything to do or climb or wonder if I can climb that thing because it's covered in yellow paint anyways. I never had to really think about it. I'm just yes, I can climb that. I can go there. And it's really kind of a wider issue with Rebirth as a whole, as we've talked about for the last two games, right? Is we want to have a little bit of exploration, things to find, things to do. I want to explore a bit, and you kind of take that away from people when you're kind of traversing the worlds of the regions. And every kind of interesting or hidden location or climbable section is covered in yellow paint or some sort of indicator that yes, you can definitely go here and climb this. I just want to find some secrets, man. You don't have to handhold everything, and with the world intel type shit in Rebirth, everything marked as a POI on the map, there's nothing secretive to find at all, and that's just kind of annoying to me and a lot of people, and it's something that I hope they dial back a bit in the next game. I also find it pretty funny that Hamaguchi talks about how necessary something like yellow paint is to help players know that they can climb something or whatever, when you have sections like Gungaga and Rebirth that are horrendously confusing, where you just jump on a mushroom and you have no goddamn idea where it's going to throw you. It might throw you 5 or 10 feet forward. It might throw you a goddamn mile across the map. You have no idea where this shit is taking you. And in a kind of similar situation, you have Cosmo Canyon in Rebirth, where you have all these launching points for the flying chocobo that let you glide all around the fucking map, right? But the thing is, you don't know where they're going to take you entirely. You can certainly decipher, okay, if I need to get to this high point, I need to get to probably a higher point to glide to that location, or maybe hit a fan along the way to get me some elevation so I can reach this. But at the same time, there's so many locations that you got to go to from specific launching points that it's kind of confusing. And unfortunately for both of those regions, I had to eventually look up a guide on how to reach certain things. I think it was one of the proto-relics in each of the regions. I just couldn't figure out how to get to it. I did my fair share of exploring, a good hour or more of how do I get to this one spot, dude? What's the mushroom that fucking bounces me there? And I just couldn't figure it out. And eventually I had to look up a guide. And that's not the worst thing in the world, but it's kind of a weird hill to die on of let's slather every fucking thing in yellow paint so that nobody gets confused. Let's hold their hand. But also, get fucked in Gungaga. Figure it out yourself. Now, that all being said, again, I don't really give a shit. Despite talking about this for the last several minutes of the video, Part 3 is going to have yellow paint. More games in the future are going to be covered in yellow paint. It'll be yellow paint the game at some point, I'm sure. Whatever, it's not going to ruin my experience. It's just kind of I don't think I need it all the time. Let me turn it off. Why isn't there a toggle? Put a toggle in the goddamn settings where I can just be Yellow paint off. Let me have some fucking freedom to explore. Actually, speaking of the toggle thing, it made me think of something from ProfNoctis. Shout out to the boy. I don't think I've ever mentioned him in a video before. But there's a post he made like more than a year ago, actually pretty close to like 2 years ago, about the way he played Rebirth that I thought was kind of interesting. Where he mentioned that he turned off like the heads-up display and any kind of navigational shit to try to go through the game as naturally as possible. I do think it's a pretty cool way to play the game, and I actually did forget about the live stream wisp that kind of guides you all throughout your journey that I also don't think is necessary. But let's imagine you're somebody that wants to do that, right? Wants to immerse yourself in the world as much as you possibly can, but then you have a yellow paint cover and everything, and that kind of ruins that immersion, right? Of like, maybe I can climb it, maybe I can go over there, and like maybe that's something I can climb or jump up onto or whatever, but it's like, if you're seeing the yellow paint from 50 feet, like obviously you know you can climb it. Anyways, we're going to move on. I did not expect to be talking about yellow paint for so fucking long. I think once we have got out the third game in the series, and hopefully it's a big success, we'll definitely move on to something else, and it'd be great to see what that team that we've managed to build up together produces. I don't know if it's the right way of talking about it, but the bonds, the relationship between the team has definitely improved a lot and strengthened that team. So I can't say at this point what that's going to be, whether it's going to be a completely new game, completely new IP, whether it's going to be something new within the Final Fantasy series, but I'm really looking forward to it. So this is something we've discussed in the last, like, probably couple weeks or so. It's something he's kind of brought up in particular interviews, like, what is this team doing? For one, we know that he knows what he's doing. He's said before in an interview that he's producing like several titles that are yet unannounced, right? So he definitely knows what his team's doing. But putting that aside, like I am kind of curious what they're going to do after part 3, right? Part of me would like to see them maybe tackle something new, like a brand new IP or something. But at the same time, as good as the job that they've done on like 7 Remake, I would like to see their team do something with Final Fantasy again, maybe Final Fantasy 17. There's no concrete release date on the final part of FF7's rebooted trilogy, and little is known about it as of yet. However, Hamaguchi confirms that the PlayStation's version's trophies will be easier to obtain. He admits that they were too difficult to achieve in Rebirth, and so he's eased difficulty after fan feedback. This seems to be a point of contention for some people, and it's definitely something Hamaguchi's talked about in the past before, kind of easing up on the Platinum Trophy in the next game. Some people have the mindset that like a Platinum Trophy needs to be this ungodly grind, this like horrible thing you got to go through in order to obtain it. It needs to be the hardest challenge ever or whatever. And it's like, not every game needs that. It's not always fun to like do every little thing in a game to achieve a Platinum Trophy. To use another Final Fantasy game as an example, the Final Fantasy X Platinum, one of the trophies for that game, require you to complete the sphere grid for every single character, but not just complete it. You have to like fill in every empty node, right, and actually activate them for every single character in the game. There is no part of that, no aspect of that that is fun to do. It's just boring, monotonous, grinding over and fucking over, dude. It's horrible. So there can definitely be a bad Platinum Trophy, and to a somewhat lesser degree, Rebirth requires you to do like everything in the game, right? And you got to beat like every mini game in the game on hard difficulty. You got to get like the hard score or whatever, right? Like, it's just not fun. Like, some of the minigames just aren't fun. I don't mind minigames in Final Fantasy, but not all of them were a fucking hit for me when it comes to Rebirth, right? Like, the biggest example for me is 3D Brawler. Like, that's just a fucking horrifying minigame, and having to do, like, everything. Beat Sephiroth at 3D Brawler in order to get a particular trophy, but also that goes towards, like, the Johnny, like, the hotel trophy shit you gotta do. Like, it's just not fun, dude. Queen's Blood was a very good minigame to play all throughout, the story with all the random people, but also the storyline there was great. But the thing is, like, it gets, like, ever so slightly progressively harder as you get through the game. And then when you get to, like, the last person you get to face in the storyline, it jumps up to fucking here. And then you gotta, like, build a very specific deck to beat them. And it's like, what was that shit, dude? That was just, like, a horrible, horrible design. Like, why would you do that? It makes no sense. Gears of Gambits is one that I sort of enjoyed at first because it brought back, like, the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII to a certain degree. But when you got to beat it on, like, the hard difficulty and shit, like, I didn't even bother. I literally did not bother. I just watched a guide. I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to waste my time doing this over and over and over, trying to figure out the right strategy. I just could not care less. So I don't really mind them, like, easing up a bit on the Platinum Trophy in the next game, where you don't have to do every little possible thing there is to do in the game in order to get the Platinum. It's not a big deal, dude. You don't have to always do that for Platinum. I think it's fine when games don't require that shit. And also, I don't understand, like, people that are so gatekeepy with the Platinum Trophy. There are people that are, like, upset that it's going to be, like, maybe easier to do it in the next game. Like, why do you fucking care? Who gives a shit? That'll be pretty much the video, my dudes. It's a rather long video for us just covering, like, 3 different topics, but we did talk a lot about yellow paint in the video, which wasn't the initial plan, but there you have it. What are your thoughts on the Platinum Trophy for Remake Part 3? What do you think Hamaguchi's team is going to be doing after Part 3? But also, more importantly, what are your thoughts on yellow paint? That's the topic of the video. Anyways, that is the video. Subscribe to channel if you guys are new, source in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @davidbyt. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought. but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.